get rid of things like poll taxes, literacy tests, and barriers to voting. And we passed the Voting Rights Act. We need to preserve and extend those laws. But each and every one of you has a second civil right. The civil right that your vote should not be canceled out, diluted, by someone who shouldn't be voting, is voting twice, or doesn't even exist. You can be just as disenfranchised, if your vote is canceled out by a fraudulent vote, as if somebody stood in a courthouse door and barred you from entering a polling place. We need to preserve both civil rights. We only hear about one of them from the mainstream media. We only hear about one of them. Both are important to preserve confidence in this election. Because again, I don't want to go through another Florida 2000, especially in a time of peril. Now, the good news is, it's not likely to be Florida that's the center of attention if this race is close. I think you have made significant improvements in your election law, procedures, and equipment. But it could be anywhere else. It could be Ohio. It could be Virginia. It could be Nevada. It could be Colorado. And believe me, there are a lot of problems out there. Acorn. How many of you have heard about Acorn? Well, we did make it famous. Let me tell you, this week I'll be publishing a major piece in the Wall Street Journal about the real story behind Acorn and its ties to Barack Obama, by the way. You all know about the Watergate scandal. There was a famous source there called Deep Throat. Well, as you know, who likes acorns? Squirrels. Well, I have deep squirrel. And Deep Squirrel has given me a stack of documents on what Acorn is really all about. So stay tuned for that piece. That's enough on my book. I know you have lots of questions about the election, perhaps about the Wall Street Journal, perhaps about the financial crisis. So I'd like to now throw that open to questions, and would be happy to take whatever you want to throw at me. And if I don't know the answer, I'm not a politician. I'll actually admit I don't. Yes?
Now, have you heard about the recent disclosure, I think it was like 2001, about Obama talking about the Constitution?
Yes, the redistribution of wealth.
Redistribution of wealth and all that stuff?
Yes. Let me just give you a preview. How many of you have heard of the name Saul Alinsky? Anyone? Okay, well, more of you should have heard of him. Saul Alinsky was the original community organizer. He was born in Chicago. He founded a group of networks of left-wing civic groups, pressure groups, inspired the creation of groups like Acorn. He was a revolutionary. And the reason he's relevant to this election and that comment about redistribution of wealth is this. Saul Alinsky wrote his famous book, Rules for Radicals. And he was such a revolutionary that he dedicated it in a very unusual way. He dedicated his book, which was about overthrowing the establishment, to Lucifer, the devil. I'm not making this up. I dedicate this book to Lucifer, the very first radical who rebelled against the establishment and did it so effectively that he at least won his own kingdom, unquote. He called his book a step toward a science of revolution that was explicitly built on the tactics of Machiavelli. Quote, "The Prince by Machiavelli was written for the haves on how to hold power. Rules for Radicals that I have written is written for the have-nots on how to seize it and take it away." He quoted, said, "In the end, in war, we justify almost anything by any means. The practical revolutionary in politics will understand that ends must justify the means in action. One does not always enjoy the luxury of a decision that is consistent with one's individual conscience or the good of mankind," unquote. In other words, he was a moral relativist. Why is this important? Two people ran for the Democratic nomination this year. One was Hillary Rodham Clinton, and one was Barack Obama. The connection that almost no one ever made was both of these people had strong ties to Alinsky and Alinsky's groups. Hillary Rodham Clinton wrote her thesis at Wellesley on Saul Alinsky, 93 pages. She kept it covered up until after she left the White House. It's a highly complimentary book. She went to interview Alinsky 4 times. He offered her a job. She almost took it. She ended up working for a law firm instead. She, to this day, credits Saul Alinsky for much of her political thinking. Barack Obama was too old to be around when Saul Alinsky was still alive. But in 1985, when he went to Chicago, never having visited the city, never having been in the city before, why did he go? because the Lewinsky organization inspired him to go and become a community organizer. And Barack Obama is quoted in my book as telling the Washington Post, Saul Alinsky provided me with the finest education I ever received, that includes Harvard and Columbia. Now, where does this fit in with Barack Obama today? ACORN was founded by Alinskyites. ACORN is an explicitly moral relativist organization. That's why they're all their intimidation tactics, how they were able to convince and coerce banks to lower their lending standards and bring in more subprime loans. ACORN pioneered the zero down payment loan. ACORN convinced Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to lower their loan standards through their allies in Congress like Barney Frank and Chris Dodd. ACORN is at the heart of the housing mess we have. ACORN is also at the heart of the voter registration scandals of each preceding election. Well, where did Barack Obama have his biggest success in life? How many of you know what he actually did as a community organizer in Chicago? We keep hearing as a community organizer. Does anyone know what he did? Well, some people have said the fact that we don't know means he was a failure. Oh, no, he was a brilliant success as a community organizer. It's just that he doesn't want to tell us what he did. His first success was registering 150,000 people for ACORN to elect Carol Moseley Brown senator in Illinois. He did such a great job for that, that ACORN made him their top trainer at their conferences. He denies this. You can go to his website and there's, stop the smears, but he's changed that website each time that more information has come out that indicates that his attempts to cover up his ACORN past have proved futile. Then what happened? He became their top lawyer. The motor voter law, which created the template for much of our voter fraud in the country, because it mandated postcard registration. You could sign up and get an absentee ballot without showing ID. You also prevented secretaries of state in many places from purging the voter rolls of people who had moved or died or no longer were eligible. Barack Obama was the lawyer for ACORN. Then he steered over $240,000 in foundation grants when he was on the board of the Woods Fund to ACORN. And then this year, his campaign paid ACORN $832,000 for get out the vote efforts. They tried to conceal it on their FEC forms, Federal Election Commission. It says event staging and lighting, making it seem like a roadshow game. Well, actually, it was for get out the vote efforts, the kind that we've seen in Brotherhood scandal. So, Barack Obama has not only ties to ACORN. I think all of this makes us realize why Barack Obama was nominated by the Democratic Party. I personally believe that he is not just the Democratic candidate for president, he's the first Democratic operative for president. The first Democratic candidate to spring out of these community organization groups that are so involved in trying to change society. Now, will he be a radical in the White House? No, I don't think so. I think Barack Obama is a careerist. I think he's an opportunist, and I also think he knows the limits of political action in America. But his background should at least have been discussed in this campaign. It hasn't. Now, given all of this, can I really tie the modern Democratic Party to Saul Alinsky? Well, let me read you a letter that appeared in the Boston Globe recently. All of the elements were present at the Democratic Convention in Denver. The individual stories told by real people of their situations and hardships. The packed to the rafters crowd. The crowd's chanting of key phrases and names. The action on the spot of testing and planning to show instant support and commitment to jump into the political battle. The texting on cell phones of rallying cries to the people. The selections of music. The settings of the agenda by the Power to the People movement. The Democratic National Committee and Convention had all the elements of the perfectly organized event, Saul Alinsky style. Barack Obama's training in Chicago by the great community organizer is showing its true effectiveness. It is an amazingly powerful